Today is July the 16th. What happens when we share our faith? Let's find out together as we study Jesus' words. Today we wrap up the meta command to share the gospel. We'll look at three different commands. The first command occurs in John chapter 20, verse 22. Jesus appears to the disciples who had gathered together after his resurrection. When he comes to them, John chapter 20, verse 22, he breathes on them. And he says, receive the Holy Spirit. The word for spirit is the same word for breath, for wind in Greek. So he gives them an object lesson and tells them to receive the Holy Spirit. He does something kind of similar in the book of Luke, chapter 24, verse 49. He says, now, New Living Translation, now I will send the Holy Spirit just as my Father promised. But stay here in the city until the Holy Spirit comes and fills you with power from heaven. New Living Translation uses the word Holy Spirit twice there. It actually doesn't occur in Greek. What he literally says is, I will give you what God has promised you. Stay in the city until you receive power from on high. In the book of Acts, they receive that power in Acts chapter 2, where it is clearly identified as the Holy Spirit. The power that they received was not the power to do miracles. They actually had that power before. It was the power to share, the power to be different, and the power to stand up and share. And so the very same Peter who denied knowing Jesus around the fire in the high priest's courtyard now stands up and preaches to everyone. The second command, Jesus says, don't be afraid of persecution. When you share, you'll be misunderstood. People may persecute you. Matthew chapter 10, verse 26. Don't be afraid of those who threaten you. Matthew 10:28. Don't be afraid of those who want to kill you. Matthew 10:31. Don't be afraid. All of this is given in the context of doing kingdom work. There are times when we may be frightened by the reactions that we get from people when we share the gospel. Jesus said, if they hated me, they'll hate you too. One possibility when we share our faith is that people will reject it and reject us. What do we do when that happens? Well, what Jesus asks us to do is to rejoice. Again, from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:11 and 12, God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you, lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you're my followers. Be happy about it. Be glad, for great reward awaits you in heaven. Remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. What might happen? People might accept. People might reject. It doesn't matter. We're called to share the gospel. Let's find ways to share the gospel with those who are around us. Whether they accept it or not, share the gospel. Like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you use to listen to this devotional. Email your questions to us at questions@becomehope.com. Sunday, we'll talk about serving in our community.